We're here with head coach Cody Thiessen of the Lookeba Sickles Panthers. First off, coach, walk me through this season. I know basketball kind of bled into the season. You guys got your first game of the year won, and then things kind of went south.
Yeah, we've had something that haven't had here in a while, and that's some injuries. Our numbers are low anyway, with just 11 players, but my number one player had a little elbow issue, so he hasn't been able to play defense for us. He's been DHing. He gets that checked out on Tuesday. Hopefully, we'll be able to get him rehab and get him back. Probably be back for pitching, but he'll be back hopefully to play defense for us and kind of give us more depth. We've been, like that game there, we got my left fielder and my second baseman there hadn't played since they were in junior high. So they made some big plays right there at the end of the game to secure the win. But we're having to overcome some injuries and stuff like that, and giving some guys some different places to play, making some guys. That's one thing we've always tried with Mike's help, is always have plenty of pitching. But some of these guys have been asked to step up in big games and pitch big innings against really good competition. Our schedule's been really tough. We've played some really good teams. At times we haven't competed as well as I'd like, but then at times when we do compete, we're able to do some good things if we do it the right way.
Yeah, there's several tournaments that come to mind through the state. Obviously, the Roth Tiger tournament that you're headed to next week is one of the best, and the Tuttle Tiger, spring break shootout, and the Ouachita Valley Conference one. But that I-40 Classic is no joke. You guys played Tuttle, Weatherford. I know you faced 5A school Piedmont, I think, earlier in the season as well. You have played 2A teams, Amber, Pocasset, and Dibble. Now Cashion. Even though you guys lost I think it was a 4-game losing streak and then maybe 3. Did the players quit? Did they keep buying in? And how were you guys able to turn the corner from that psychologically and just competitively?
Well, I think when you play bigger schools like that, you have to understand that sometimes it's all about how you handle what may have happened in that game. Maybe you didn't catch a ball, maybe you made a mistake, but how you bounce back. And I think these guys over the years, they know the schedule we play in the spring. In the fall, you kind of have your same teams that you kind of play because you don't have the bigger schools. But they know in the spring, we're going to go to the I-40 tournament. We're going to go to the Roth tournament. We're going to play in the festival up in the city where we play, Piedmont. We played Ray Peck out of South Kansas City. It's kind of funny. I met them the night before we played him in the hotel, and he said, how many kids you got? And I said, well, we're Class B. And he said, we don't know what that is. I said, we have 92 students, 7 through 12. And he says, we got 600 freshmen. And I said, well, I've got one freshman. He's going to pitch against you tomorrow. And Connor goes out and goes 0 innings through 6. 0 runs through 6 innings.
Wow.
And so when you have those tough defeats, it's all about the perspective of what's next. You can't dwell on the past. You got to move forward. Bad thing is the weather this year is when we have days to practice, it's been so bad that we haven't been able to do a lot of practicing in the off days that we have. So coming down the stretch, we get into the playoffs. I think everything will be just fine.
So how do you grade the performance? Let's just take 2 championship games. Tuttle 10-0 loss. This team here had you down 6-1. You guys scored 9 runs with 2 outs.
Yeah.
Come out victorious 10-6.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference in 2 weeks.
Well, it's like the first part of that game. We catch a couple of pop-ups and we get ourselves momentum, and we let those things drop, and then we get our heads down. Connor did it right there with his pitching, and he stopped competing, and that's what we ask, is to keep competing. And I think it's one of the most frustrating things for me with any athlete is you got to compete at all times. And we had a couple things go right there to where we started competing, and we started believing in each other and started believing in ourselves. Even the dink here and the dink down the line, we're competing. We're not just taking what's given, we're competing. That total loss was 10-0, but we didn't compete very good in that. We had 2 or 3 errors that cost us. We get beat 10-0, and we have 3 earned runs is all they had. And so you got to keep competing. That's what we strive to do here, and that's what, when we do those things, when we compete, we can play with anybody. It's like any other sport. When you don't, and you doubt yourself, and you let down, like I tell them before, we're not good enough to not play hard. We have to play hard all the time.
Right, and to a certain extent, strategy is one thing, but preparation really trumps strategy if you execute properly. You've seen Fort Cobb Roxton. Many people think they're number 2 in Class B. They're ranked number 2 in Class B. You're going to see likely number 1 Roth next week in Class B. You've seen number 4 Leedy in Class B. Those will be the teams that you play. But when you play a team up and higher like this, do you think that it battle tests you in a way that will benefit you even if you have 8, 9, or 10 losses?
Yes, absolutely. Because even if, as long as they're good losses. Now we've had a couple of losses, like earlier when we played Fort Cobb. I mean, first inning we dropped the ball at first base, cost us 5 runs. Those weren't good losses because we didn't execute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as long as you have good, you play them tougher teams. And even like an Ample the other day, we get down on them, but we came back at the end of the game. We didn't stop. We scored 3 runs in the 6th inning. Had a chance to score more, but we make a base running error. But you prepare yourself, no matter who you're playing, to get ready for the playoffs. And I've always been this way. A good friend of mine and mentor, Randy Smith from Marlow, he always said, you stay on them, and I do. You stay on them through the year, and you coach them up hard. And then when you get to the playoffs, that's when you got to back off and let them play, because that's when they got to know what to do. And that's what we try to do. Sometimes it looks like I'm overcoaching, but when they get to the playoffs and I can back off and let them have their head, that's when they go to work.
Final question, and this is more personal. How difficult was it? And then on the flip side of that coin, how relieved were you as a dad and a coach to have to pull your son to put another player in, but then knowing that it was probably the right decision and it got you the win?
Well, there's a separation there that is hard when you have a son on the team. This is Kyler's just a freshman, and he's been our go-to guy since Jake's been hurt, and he's done a great job. I mean, his most difficult game was against Canute the other day when they hit a couple 3 home runs off of him when the wind was blowing out 30, and today he got touched up, but he just made some bad pitches. I mean, but what I saw was his body language. He wasn't competing. He was giving up on himself out there. And so that's when, you make the decision to go ahead and bring somebody else in that their mindset may be a little bit sharper, And that's his first time to ever catch. He's never caught. And so we're down a player tonight.
Yeah,
so,
I've heard that.
Gotta love those problems, especially when they're somewhere else. So we were down our catcher tonight. And so he had to step up and go back there and catch, and I was proud of him for doing that. I mean,
absolutely.
And when you're a small team like we are, people got to play different places. And so you got to prepare him for that. But I didn't have him prepared for catching because I didn't plan on that. But he stepped up and did a good job.
Well, I know you got to do some duties here on the field. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on a great win.